Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who are new to our IB Speaker Series, welcome to your first session. And for those of you who are returning, welcome back. This is actually our third session. My name is Courtney, and I am the IBEC coordinator here at the Faculty of Education. And if you are in fact new to our IB Speaker Series, I will just give you a little bit of a rundown of what it is that we're actually doing. We are running a 30-minute session through the month of December. So our sessions are held every Tuesday and Thursday, and that's going to be until our IB application portals close. So right now, our January intake is going to begin on the 18th, and we have our applications open until the 21st of December. But with the series in total, we have 6 different sessions with a variety of guest speakers who are going to be joining us to discuss their experiences within the IB community. Now, as always, we will be drawing for the door prize for everybody that is in attendance today, and that'll be done at the end, so stay tuned for that. But really, I wanted to get into it. It is a 30-minute session, so joining us today, we have Dr. Ildiko Murrayne, and Dr. Ildiko will actually be discussing her teaching journey and how she built her career through the IB network. So I wanted to say thank you so much, Ildiko, for taking time out of your day today to spend with us and explain your experiences with IB a little bit more to us.
Thank you very much, Courtney. This is a fantastic opportunity, and I'm very happy to be here to talk with you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so Courtney asked that I kind of talk about my career and how I got from, point A to point B in this education journey, and how the IB has truly shaped my career, both academic and professional career. And hopefully you can take some ideas away from my journey. A lot of the times when people talk about, wanting to be a teacher, they talk about how, from the time that they were children, this was something that they wanted to do. That's not my journey. I never set out to be a teacher. I am still sometimes now surprised that I have spent the last 24 years as a teacher and educator. And quite frankly, if my 18-year-old self would have a conversation with me, she would be very surprised about the choices that I made in life. I really thought, I was going to be a lawyer. That's what I set out to be when I finished high school. I really thought that I was going to be either in international law and pursuing a diplomatic career, or be a corporate lawyer. I never thought that I was going to get married. I didn't think that I was going to have children. And so at 21, I got married. I waited until I was in my 30s to have children, but most certainly it was not what I imagined for myself. So if you are here and you're thinking, is teaching a profession that I would like to go into, I'm here to say that it can make for a fantastic life. I really am very happy that, my journey didn't turn out what I planned for myself. But as such, I wanted to just sort of touch on a career theorist, John Crumboltz, who came up with the idea of planned happenstance. And it is an actual career theory of just being open to opportunities and looking at things that are coming at you and daring to be different and taking the opportunities as they come. And this is truly how I feel that my career has shaped itself. So I think I've done a lot of things backwards. I think I've done a lot of things in not the usual lockstep design, and I jumped a bunch of steps along the way. But so as I said, I'm actually Hungarian, and right now I'm in Hungary. I'm talking to you from Hungary, and I'm on a gap year this year. Not a bad year not to be full-time in a school, especially internationally. Depending on your location, this has been quite a challenging year. But it's also allowed me to try a lot of different things this year, including being part of the IBEC program, both the teaching and learning and the leadership practices program at Western, which I have been very much enjoying. And So this is also just showing, not everybody thought we were kind of crazy when we decided to take a gap year, not because of COVID. This has been in the plans for a couple of years now, but sometimes you make these daring decisions and they really pay off. So I went to high school here in Hungary, and then I applied for a scholarship in the United States, and that's where I did my Bachelor of Arts education in history and psychology. And as all good stories start, I met a man, a young man at the time, fell crazy in love, and all my plans went out the window. He happens to be Canadian. I'm happy to report that we are still very happily married. We will have our 25th wedding anniversary next month. And he's also my partner in crime on this crazy journey, both as educators and as parents and as people. So he was at my university to do his teacher education. He is one of those people who just had this calling of becoming a teacher. But when we graduated in the mid-90s, there were no jobs in Canada. So we ended up in Tokyo, Japan, and as language teachers. And that's how we started out. But we were there for 4 years, and we ended up in a more or less international school, but teaching in a way where there were quite a number of students who were who had gone abroad with their families, and then they returned to Japan. So they were in Japanese school in the morning hours, and then they came to English education in the afternoon. So it sort of lended itself very well to what then later I became to known as a transdisciplinary education, which is what the PYP does in the IB, because we didn't have time to teach all of the subjects separately. But you had to kind of look at the time, I looked at this as thematic teaching, and then we brought in all of the different subjects to teach the students simply because of time. I have to say that this was our first introduction into international education, but we were woefully unaware of what international education could offer. I wish I would have had the knowledge that there were actual IB schools in the Tokyo area that especially my husband as a trained teacher could have gone to, and we probably would have had a much better experience. Having said that, we got into this type of education mostly because we had to pay back the price of our education. And this was a good way of making some money, getting some teaching experience. But the goal was always to return back to Canada. So it was always like, the Canadian public school education was like the Shangri-La for us. Like, that's what we wanted to do. And then so in 2000, that opportunity came, and then at that time, of course, there was teacher shortage in Canada, so we returned to the Toronto area, and we started teaching there. My husband went to a public school in York region, and I actually, strangely enough, thought, yeah, that was my foray into education. Let's get back to the, I'm going to be a lawyer plan. And I literally had an appointment to figure out how to do this next step. And I got a call from a new PYP school that was just being established, and through a contact, and I went and I interviewed with them, and that was on a Friday, and I started on Monday to teach there. So it was like paycheck in hand was more important than trying to figure out how to go to law school. And so that's how that kind of came, and I never looked back. And it was a new school, and they were putting the PYP into practice. So I worked there for 4 years. And during that time, I assisted the head of school. It was a small school. And I assisted the head of school with getting all of the documentation together for authorization for the program. And I really enjoyed it. so much so that I decided that this is what I wanted to do for my master's. So I applied at OISE, and I did a year-long master's program there. And I did my master's thesis on how PYP teachers work together in a program that mandates teacher collaboration. And I really enjoyed it. I did my research at a Toronto private school, and I really just enjoyed the research. I really enjoyed the work, and it was a fantastic experience. But at that time, my husband and I decided to start a family, and we moved downtown. We bought a condo. And so I switched, the commuting was going to be too much. So I switched over and I worked at, as a child and youth worker at a private group home. So that was, again, truly an out-of-body experience. I have never experienced, working with, these were young people who, some of them were coming out of treatment for drug dependency. Some of them were on bail conditions. Some of them were just taken out of their family's home in the middle of the night because of child protection issues. And so it was a 24-hour staffed group home, and that's where I worked for a year and a half. I was also expecting our first child at the time. And I really enjoyed it, but there was also some education going on because many of these students were at risk, so they couldn't go to regular school. So they got, modules, like we had to get their education in when we could get their education in, as they were sometimes short term for their stay at the group home. But boy, talk about special education, talk about alternative education. It was a crash course in that. And of course we had our first baby, and then we decided, okay, well, we have to move out into the suburbs because truly you can't raise a child in a high rise. Remember that I said that. And then when we moved out, to the outskirts of York region, before we did that, it became clear that I would have to go into public education, and I didn't have my OCT at the time. So remember I said I did everything backwards. I had my master's degree, I had all my PYP training, I had all of these other experiences, but I didn't have a BEd, and therefore I was in an OCT, so I couldn't have worked in a publicly funded Ontario school. So I decided to apply and at OISE and do my BEd, and so I did. By that time, I switched over to I really enjoyed working with teenagers when I was at the group home. So I thought, okay, yeah, I had a good time with the PYP, but let's switch over to more the intermediate senior divisions. And also my husband is a primary junior teacher, and we had a little boy, and we were like, okay, that's too much to have two elementary teachers in a family. Teaching is a very emotive profession, but I would say especially when you are day in and day out with the same 25 to 30 kids in a primary classroom, you just give so much of yourselves. And we just felt that for our family and for our sanity and for our emotional health, we couldn't both do that. So I went into senior and intermediate in English and history. And so I did that at OISE. And then out of my graduating class, there were 3 of us who had jobs when we graduated, when we were at graduation. I was lucky enough to be one of those. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I was a child and youth worker, and I could go into a tougher high school and deal with those kids. And I actually enjoyed working with those students. And that gave me an edge that, alternative education, special ed, all of those did not scare me. And quite frankly, with a young family, because then once I started working there, we had another baby. I just felt, teaching locally developed and applied courses suited my family really well, because quite frankly, it's not as much um, prep, it's not as much marking, and having 2 young kids at home, that suited us well. So I worked at a public high school for 6 years, and I really truly enjoyed it. We lived in the same community where we both taught. Like from my classroom, I could see John's classroom in the feeder school, in one of the feeder schools, and our kids were just a kilometer away, at kindergarten and elementary school. But I think I've been bitten, by the wanderlust of wanting something different. And I was always hosting teacher candidates in my classroom. I really, truly enjoyed, I had teachers from Queens, I had teachers from Nipissing, from U of T, and it was just a really great way of rejuvenating my own teaching practices, bringing something different in for my students, and continuing my own learning. And one of these students came to me and asked me to do a reference letter for her for TORF, which is the Teachers Overseas Recruitment Fair at Queen's University. And I was like, what is this? What's happening? Well, she's like, most likely I will not get a job here in Ontario, even though she was a French teacher and she ended up having a job in Ontario at the time. But because Queen's provided this opportunity for their BEd graduates to go to this overseas fair, I got to know about it. So I gave myself 1 year to try to convince my husband to go on a 2-year leave from our jobs from the board, which was a possibility, and so that we could do something different. And little did I know, he was at that time 12 years working at the same elementary school where he was. And I didn't know how much he was looking for something different. We both needed something to kind of, like you get into a comfortable rut. Yeah. And we just needed something to rejuvenate our lives. And our kids were at the age, at the time they were 3 and 7. So they were at the age where we were like, okay, we are comfortable enough with this whole parent malarkey. We would be able to handle this. And so, and as I said, I gave myself a year, and this was in September of 2012. And he said, well, why don't we go over to Dairy Queen and have a blizzard and talk about it, about this idea that you have. At that time, I already called the recruiters, the person who is organizing TORF. And she told me, oh, well, you have IB experience. That will be very useful when you are trying to get a job. So I thought, let's have a conversation. So it took me 20 minutes just sort of to tell him exactly what I was thinking. And within those 20 minutes, he went from, oh, okay, this is an interesting idea, to, yeah, let's do this. Let's sell the house. Let's sell the car. Let's take the kid. Let's go. Let's do this, like, seriously. And so we got our packages together. We also found out about Search Associates. So that's another huge overseas recruitment organization. And so we started looking. As I said, at that point, we just thought we would go for a 2-year little jaunt, because we found out that the initial contracts would be for 2 years. And then, we would be teachers. So we went to TORF, which is in end of January. And what I ended up with is becoming the diploma program coordinator at a school in Kuwait. And at the same time, I had a colleague who was completing her doctoral studies at York University. And she was my age, she had 2 children, and I was looking at her and I'm like, she's doing her doctorate. Well, I could do my doctorate. Why not? So even if we end up not having a job and not moving, I needed a new challenge. And so I put in my application late, because it just occurred to me in January. So I put in my application. I searched out my thesis supervisor for my master's that I completed many years prior to that, who had retired since then, but was very supportive of my application. So I decided, I did something with the IB. I should do something with the IB for my doctorate as well. So I put together, a very crude research proposal. And I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of forgot about it once we started with this whole job application thing. And so I ended up going to the Middle East with becoming the diploma program coordinator. And it was one of those like, oh my God, what did I just bitten off? Because forget about like faking it till you make it. It was like, let's just pull this out of thin air type of a thing. But the head of school really saw something in me, and he said, you can do this. What he forgot to tell me was that at the same time, my first year, I was also supposed to lead the evaluation of the diploma program. So every 5 years, every IB school has to go through an entire program evaluation. So pretty much that was kind of crazy. And then I also got accepted into the OISE doctoral program. So I thought, hey, why not? Why not move an entire family? At this point, our children were 4 and 8 years old, start brand new jobs in a totally new environment, somewhere where we have never been, do an evaluation and start my doctoral studies. Because why not? Sell our house, our cars, our entire life, pack us up and go. I mean, go big or go home type of thing. Now I look back on it and I'm like, we were crazy. And by the way, everybody thought that we were we moved to Kuwait. Everybody thought that we were absolutely crazy because the only thing that they knew about Kuwait was the 1991 Gulf War. And so our parents were like, are you taking our children to a war zone? And I'm like, it's been over for a long time. I think we're going to be okay. And it was an IB continuum school, so PYP, NYP, and DP. And everything, once we made the decision, everything came together just perfectly. Like, it was scary. I was always waiting for the other shoe to fall. But it came together really well. Now, did we have huge moments of doubt? Yeah, my husband came home and threw a humongous temper tantrum because after 13 years at a school, he couldn't find where the supplies were. He was bewildered by the whole idea of having to teach with PYP and all of the acronyms that the IB was using. The moment that I accepted the job, I started to do my PQP. So I had to do my junior qualifications. I did my guidance qualifications. I got IB training for language and literature. I got IB training to become a coordinator. And I did my PQP part 1 before we left. It was insane. But, and then I started my doctoral dissertation as well, because I decided, well, why don't I just write my dissertation about the evaluation of the program that I'm leading? I mean, I have to do it for my job, so why not just do that? So basically, I chose what I was doing for my dissertation when I have just done 2 courses that year. So remember how I said everything backwards and everything all at once. One of the fantastic things was that I had a full-time nanny. Like, it was like, what? You can have this as a teacher, this kind of lifestyle, like full-time help? And I literally feel that all of the hours that I would have spent in, domestic drudgery, I turned it into a doctoral degree because I didn't have to, she cooked for, like, it was like, we went home and there was food on the table and she was a phenomenal cook. Our children loved her. Our house was clean. The laundry was done. So I felt like my children were not missing out with time with me. And I could still do my full-time job and I could still do my part-time doctoral studies. And it was within 2 months, John and I looked at each other and I'm like, we cannot go back. Like we are not totally unemployable in Canada because this is the kind of lifestyle that we are now getting used to. And then all of the traveling and all of the, and it totally revitalized our dedication to our jobs. So I'm not saying that I loved being at a public school in Canada, and I'm so grateful for those experiences and the training that I've had, but it's a very different thing. I don't think that I would have ever been able to become an administrator, for example, in the public system, where I don't have control over to which school that I'm going to in a large board, because they just assign you. I don't think that I could go back to collective bargaining, where it's like, oh, this is your money, because this is what the unions have agreed on. So there's a lot of risk with being independent contractors, as we are, but I like negotiating my own salary and benefits, and I like negotiating how my position is put together or what I'm responsible for, which, as I've been going up more, has become a much larger part of my job as well. So, so we spent 4 years in Kuwait, loved living there. I'm still homesick for the Middle East. So don't believe the CNN propaganda about how life is in different countries. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you need to make those decisions for you and your family. And there, a lot of people talk about hardship posts, and it depends on what's a hardship for you. So it's individual experiences that will make your life what it is. We also enjoyed being part of an international community of educators at a school. So your life in an international school is very intertwined. So it's not like, in Canada, a lot of the people don't even like living in the same community where they are teaching. Some of our colleagues purposefully bought houses outside of the community where they were teaching. They don't want to go to the grocery store and see their teachers. My husband and I, we enjoyed that. So that was not a problem for us. In an international school, a lot of the times you live in the same building with all of your colleagues. So but it depends on the school. So not every school. So there's such a wide variety of school contexts that you can truly be the architect of your own life, because you can be as intertwined with the school as you want to be. And for our children, it was great to have that lifestyle. Remember how I said we moved out of Toronto because you can't raise children in high rise? So we've been raising children now in the high rise for the last 7 years. And we had that conversation of like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do with that? And the flip side of it is that, in Kuwait, we had a membership at a beach club, and we use that as our backyard. And we have been traveling so much that, like, literally my children had this conversation when they were quite little of like, what is your favorite body of water? I think I like the Indian Ocean the most, and then the Mediterranean, and then the Arabian Gulf, and then the Pacific. And John and I looked at each other and like, what was your favorite body of water when you were like 8 years old? It's like a bathtub. Like, that was our experience. Or maybe, Lake Simcoe, or the river that's near my house where I grew up. So their experiences are so absolutely different, and they have now been in IB schools as students themselves. So I see how their education is different from what they would have had in a small town in Canada. But again, I'm looking for the next challenge. So we were 4 years in Kuwait, and then I applied for other jobs in my third year there. So it's always you're recruiting for the next job starting the summer before your last year at your final year at your school. So it's a very different kind of rhythm to it. And the higher that you go, the earlier you start recruiting. And so I became the head of secondary at International School Dhaka and other PYP, NYP, DP schools. So there I was responsible secondary principal from grade 6 up to grade 12. So I did that for 3 years. And so I kind of sidestepped the whole vice principal job. And I also did a lot of work with the IB in my time in Kuwait. So there's a thing that's called the IB Educator Network that I started to work quite a bit with. I used my doctoral studies to present at international conferences. And I used all of those opportunities to network. And that's another thing, that you have to network on an international stage. And if you are not out there promoting yourself, then you are missing out on a lot of different opportunities. And quite frankly, I just go up to anybody who I think would be interesting and I start talking. I have no problem talking, as you can tell. And it helps to be memorable in some way. So it's a reason why I'm wearing a red leather jacket. I love leather jackets. And so whenever I would be going and presenting at a conference, I would take out one of my leather jackets and I would, make an impression. That's what you want to do. You want to make an impression. And first of all, I feel confident and this is who I am, but it also makes an impression. So, and I talked quite a bit with providers of IB training. I talked with IB personnel, and those relationships have been just paying off over the years very greatly. So just to finish sort of where I'm going next, because I told you right now I'm on a year sabbatical, well, gap year, and I thought, no, I'm not going to be doing much. I think I've been just as busy as if I had a full-time job. So working with Western, I also work quite a bit with the IB. So I'm a workshop leader. I was a history examiner as well for many years, and I had to stop it because I simply don't have the time to do it anymore. The workshops that I lead are I started out with CAS just this year, but before that, it's all about teaching how to do evaluation for DP coordinators. I also coordination. I also am on evaluation team visits. And I have now been working for the last several years as a subject matter expert for program planning and evaluation, because the IB has put out a new program standards and practices and then changed the evaluation of the program to go together with that, the new PSP. So when I was, just a little teacher, I never would have thought that, like the IB would fly me out, to The Hague to attend 3 days of putting together how the next set of workshops are going to be run for coordinators, or that, my school would fly me to Rome to present my research study to, standing room only in a large conference room. Or, the same thing happened in Barcelona, or the same thing, that people were running after me in Barcelona airport just to tell me how much they enjoyed my workshop at the conference. And then the funniest part about that was that then later I got a message from one of these people who saw me at 3 different conferences and said, that he's kind of embarrassing, that he's kind of a fanboy, but there's a job that he would like me to apply at his school that he thought that I would be perfect for. So these are the kinds of opportunities that you can have as part of this larger IB family. And so this year I thought, okay, maybe we can do now a head of school position. So a head of school in an international school is sometimes they're called directors or superintendent, somebody who's responsible for the K through 12 education of the students, working directly with the board, kind of that position. And so I'm very happy that starting in July, I'm going to be the head of school at Changchun American International School in China, which is again a continuum school, an IB, PYP, MYP, and DP school of 530 students. So scary, but fantastic. And of course, I'm joined on this journey with my children, so they are excited to be going into into the MYP. Both of them are going to be in the MYP, and my husband is going to continue his job as a PYP teacher. So for us as a family, this has been a phenomenal opportunity, one that without having these experiences with the IB, we wouldn't have had. And I'm so excited. Every time it's a challenge, and some things have been very difficult, but you learn from those experiences, and you bring them forward. The other thing that now I am very excited about is being able to pay this forward. So now I'm in a situation where I can hire teachers and middle management and now senior management team members as well. So it's been just fantastic to see, the impact that I can have on other people's career as well. So, boy, I've been talking quite a bit. So, in a nutshell, what I'm just trying to say is, planned happenstance. None of this was planned. When I was 18 years old, I couldn't even have imagined that this was going to be my life. There were inspirations and opportunities that came on during pivotal moments of my life, and I'm happy that I had a very supportive partner who just said, sure, go for it, let's do this crazy thing. And so we've been just doing that, and I can't even imagine where we're going to be in 5 years.
Wow, that was one. I'm still listening to everything that you said. That's quite the journey. Thank you so much for explaining everything that you went through, and congratulations on the new role in July. That's absolutely wonderful. I don't know, we're a little bit over. If you had a couple of minutes, Ildiko, I'm not sure if you
I have time, no problem. So if you have questions, if you have
maybe we'll open it up. Yeah, we do have a couple minutes. Maybe we'll open it for about 5 minutes and see if there's any questions from those that attended today. And we should be unmuting everybody, so feel free to jump in and ask any questions that you have.
I apologize for coming late. I finished school very late. You mentioned Kuwait. I've just come back from Kuwait. What part of Kuwait was you in?
In Kuwait City.
What
American International School.
Okay. I was in the British system.
Yeah.
Kuwait English School. I was there for 16 years. I just came back.
Yeah.
I did a journey like you.
Yeah.
And I'd like your email. Can I have your email, please?
Absolutely.
I would like your
email. If you would like to give out my Gmail address, no problem.
Perfect. I'll add it into the chat.
Yeah, because there's a couple of things I'd like to ask you about the IB for my son. So I'll speak to you about that in the email.
Absolutely. No problem, Tracy.
Okay. Thank you very much. But it was a wonderful tail end. Wonderful journey. It reminds me of me.
Good. Maggie, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you. Just first of all,
oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. That often happens on a Zoom meeting. I'm talking into the air. No, I just wanted to say thank you. It was very inspirational, actually, the thought that you can start, with one idea of what your life is going to be and then end up in Kuwait with a nanny. Love that. I was wondering, because I'm interested in teaching in IB in Canada. I was wondering, you talked a lot about the international scene. Like, are there a lot of jobs in IB in Ontario, like specifically IB schools? Because I'm not interested in teaching in the public system.
Mm-hmm. So there are public schools as well, both in the public school system and the Catholic board. So there are those ones there. And then there are lots of private schools that offer the IB.
Okay.
As I said, I did my research at one of the well-established Toronto schools, and many of them offer the IB. So, and not just in Toronto, but in Ottawa, in all of the major cities, they are there. As I said, when we decided to move into the suburbs, that was when it became clear that I would have to go into the public system.
Okay.
Because they were just not there in the area where we wanted to move.
Okay.
But there are these schools as well. I do have to say that it's the same difficulty getting jobs.
Yeah.
Anywhere now, right?
Yeah.
And for example, my nephews, who my husband's family lives out in Victoria, and our nephews go to an IB school, an IB private school in Victoria. So it's all over Canada, the IB is there. Actually, North America has probably the most number of IB schools in the world. So
do you think, Doctor, like, given that it's competitive to get a school at a job at an IB school in Ontario, do you think that's why so many IB teachers end up going abroad for a while and then like coming back a bit later?
So, well, first of all, when you are an Ontario certified teacher, you are going to have an easier time getting a job abroad. I'm going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
We have very good.
You said
Yeah.
abroad. They care that you have an Ontario certification.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have
They do.
very, very good reputation around the world. So, and obviously because I'm an Ontario certified teacher, and I did my principal's qualification with OPC and all of that.
Yeah.
I look at you and I see that you are an OCT. You're gonna go to the top of my pile. Absolutely. Okay. I would hire, and I did hire, teachers in Bangladesh, because there I could hire teachers with no teaching experience, straight out of faculty, because I knew the quality of the training that they were going to have.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, in Kuwait, Tracy, like it's the American International School where I was at. It's an IB school.
Yeah, I know it very well.
Yeah, we had lots of Canadian teachers.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny when I told you that I did my PQP part 1 before I left for Kuwait. And then to do my internship, I needed to have an Ontario certified principal as my supervisor. Well, at the time, the high school principal, the high school assistant principal, the elementary school principal, the elementary school assistant principal were all Ontario trained principals. It's just, so I had my pick of who was going to be my supervisor for that.
I don't mean to be dumb though, or not dumb, but thick-headed about this, but like, so I'm certified to teach English and history. Well, no, I'm not certified, but I will be. Yes. So I know like Canadian literature and history really well. How are you supposed to land in somewhere like Kuwait, where it has a completely different system of literature and history and culture?
Well, so first of all, this is an American system. So what you need to understand that most of these schools are, they use the IB as an education framework, but the curriculum itself is usually an American style, or Tracy, you were in the British system, so you probably did Keystone, key stages, and then IGCSE and those, and A levels. So that's the British system. The American system, so there are several accrediting bodies. So most known are MSA, which is the Middle States Association of Schools and Colleges, or NEASC, which is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, or WASC, which is the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. And so they accredit these schools from K through 12 so that you can grant credits towards the high school diploma, and then those diplomas are accepted all over the world. So most of the students don't just get the IB diploma, and some of the students might not even try for the IB diploma, the full diploma. They take courses, but they get an American style high school diploma at the end of it. There are some Canadian schools as well who follow either the Ontario curriculum or the Alberta curriculum or the BC curriculum. Those three are the most popular.
Okay, great.
So when you go into a school, like even in an NYP school, like this is what I tell my students or my teachers when they come in and they're new to the NYP. So in grade 9, most English language schools will teach Romeo and Juliet, at least one of the Shakespearean units. And so the whole idea is, you know, a figurative language device is a figurative language device. You are going to teach that. In NYP, which is a conceptual teaching, so we are not teaching Romeo and Juliet, depending on which global context that we use, we might be teaching, you know, relationships using Romeo and Juliet as an example of the global context of relationships. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So
Yep.
In history, we are not going to be teaching Canadian history. We are going to be teaching the global context of conflict. And as an example of conflict, we might be looking at, you know, revolution. And that could be the French Revolution. It could be the Russian Revolution. Like, you understand what I mean?
I do.
But Ontario curriculum is great to look at for an example of a really nicely articulated curriculum that is articulated vertically and horizontally, that has very good assessment attached to it, that has very good skill progression attached to it. A lot of the American schools would use Common Core for English and math, you know, to have the same idea of standards and benchmarks put into the curriculum. So it's layers upon layers, and the IB is just one layer of that.
That's helpful. I was just trying to imagine like these international students parachuting into these completely different cultures and then trying to figure out how to teach. So that's helpful. That's a good explanation. Thank you.
This is why the IB is so attractive for international families like mine, because my kids can go from Kuwait to Bangladesh to China, but they have this framework of IB education that is providing them a very familiar environment, right? And so much like us, we are moving. I mean, I cannot even talk. They ask, are your kids third culture kids? No, they are international kids, because we have more than 3 cultures going on within our own house. So they're international, and a lot of the students who we teach are international as well. So for example, when I'm going to Caius in China, there's a huge Volkswagen and Audi plant there. So part of our school is a German school.
Oh, cool.
That goes from kindergarten up to grade 4, and then the kids go into the English stream. And so yes, we do have a large number of host country students, but also international.
You make it sound so fun. Like you make it sound really fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
It is fun.
Sounds amazing. I have to run to work, but I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'll email you. Thanks, Amber, and thank you so much, Courtney. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I guess, Ildiko, if I could just ask one final question as we wrap it up. Just hearing, of course, you're one of our instructors here for our IBEC program, but you've also done the workshops. Just your thoughts on our IB program here and what maybe that looks like after completing the program for those hiring.
Yeah, so when you go to an IB workshop, which is normally 2.5 days intensive, like right now we are doing it virtually for 2.5 days, but face-to-face training is 2.5 days. There's also a possibility of doing it over 4 weeks, which is online training. This is required by the IB in order for the school to meet the requirement for all of the teachers being properly trained. The IBEC program, I would say, is the first module is almost like the first day on kind of those 5 weeks that you do. That's like the first day of a category 1 training on steroids. if I could put that. And then the other modules are all sort of extra to that. So the workshop is a very good introduction into the IB program, but it's very intensive and it's very focused. And it also depends. If you have a good workshop leader, you will get a good amount of information out of it. If you don't have a very good workshop leader, you know, but that's what you get. However, when I'm looking at candidates who are applying to my school, I will always take the ones who have IB experience ahead, and then have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
I do go with my gut feeling of, because you can have all the experience and all the training, but if I don't have that feeling that you are actually embodying the IB philosophy, and I cannot see you fitting into my team, I'm going to pass, because I want to make sure that everybody who comes into the school fits in within our team. If I look at somebody who has done IBEC training, they don't have IB experience, but they have done IBEC training, I see that there is a commitment from that teacher or from that administrator that they are interested in the IB. I know that I will not have to worry about, you know, spending my time or my coordinator's time on making sure that they understand the basics of the IB, which is, you know, how the system works, how to use the unit planner, for example, in MYP or PYP, in DP, how the assessments are working, because these courses have taken really very good care of that for us. So that is a very good indicator for me as to how much commitment there is. Those candidates can also talk about meaningfully about the IB in a interview, because even if you haven't done it in your classroom, you have gone through the exercises in the course of how you would put this into practice in your own classroom. And some of them who are already in classes, why couldn't you do it? I mean, just because you're not in an IB school, you can use the philosophy.
You can.
Exactly. Make
you
it
can,
more.
because I do.
Exactly. And then you can give me specific examples, which is also going really towards the end result of the more experience that the teachers have, the better. I already told you that even teachers who are freshly out of faculty, if they would do this and they can tell me exact ways of how they used it, for example, in their practica, the IB philosophy, that they tried it out in their classes, and I see that spark in them, and I see how they would fit into my team. Let me give you an example. A teacher in Bangladesh, straight out of Oisi. First of all, because we're speaking the same language, I know the kind of training that she received there. And she was in, we hired her, she was fantastic. She came in, and she was in a team of teachers who had been teaching DP for many, many years. A couple of them had examiner experience, all of that stuff. And still I promoted her to become the head of the department when there was an opening for that, because she just got it, and she could do it, and she could do the new IT applications in her classes, and I wanted the entire department to go in that direction. So there's stuff that I can teach you as a coordinator, as a principal, as a head, and then there are some things that either you get it or you don't get it. And some teachers are phenomenal in other systems, and they just don't really work in the IB. And some people just get it and it clicks, and they have a fantastic, long and very rewarding career with the IB.
Do you know what? To tell you the honest truth, right? I feel really bad because I should have done the IB program when my son was 10 because he wanted to do it. And I got stuck in Kuwait. And he's a gifted child. And he went through the British system, and he went to year 7, and I took him out of the British system, and I worked with him in another international system that I set up in Kuwait, and he wanted the IB, and then I put him on the American system, and he looked at the British system and he said, I don't want the British system. I don't want to go through what my brother went through. His brother did IGCSEs and A-levels. He said, American system, yeah, it's nice, I like it. He's on James Madison at the moment, but his dream is the IB, and he's year 12 at the moment. And I'm back in the UK. I just came back this year. I really want to see if he can do his last years with it, because he knows it, he likes it, he's that type of learner, he wants that. He actually went and checked out the British, the American, and the IB, and he said, the International Baccalaureate is doing it, Mum. And he's only 16.
It's not for everybody. Look, I drank the IB Kool-Aid. I'm like in this. It's what you need to do, I think, and as an administrator, my responsibility is that every single child has a pathway in our school, and we'll bring them to the success that they need. Like I look at my own son, I think he is fantastic with the MYP because he's done really well in presentations. He's done really well with the critical thinking and those kinds of things. Do I think that he has enough content knowledge? No, the MYP doesn't necessarily give you as much as what the IGCSE would do to prep you for those. So maybe your son will have done well to have that content knowledge to prepare him for the DP courses. I like the idea of a very holistic education that the IB diploma program is asking.
Of course. Yeah.
So I think that that CAS, TOK, the extended essay are fantastic to.
And that's what he likes.
Precisely.
Just going off, giving him something, he's researching it, he's able to write about it, go into it, present it, be creative about it. That's what he wants. Even if to do a 4,000 word assignment or essay, he can do that.
Yeah, then that's fantastic.
But he wants to do it with that holistic style of learning.
Yeah. So I think, everybody just has to figure out what is in their own best interest. And I think if you make the commitment to do the IBAC, you will open up your possibilities in education, both in Canada and internationally. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ildiko. We will wrap up this session. We're about half an hour over, and I unfortunately have another meeting. But I wanted to let everybody know Thursday we do have our next session. That will be with Beth Owen, who is the co-founder, CEO, and director of Searchality. So join us again on Thursday if you want to learn a little bit more about that. We did do the draw, and congratulations to Madeline for winning our door prize. So if you did want to just send me an email, Madeline, just with your email or a chat with your email address, I'll send you an email about that. And again, Ildiko, it was absolutely wonderful listening to you. Yeah, you're welcome. Send me an email. Thanks so much to everybody that attended.
Thank you really very much for your attention, and I wish you all the best as you continue on your journey. And as I said, planned happenstance. Just grab hold of those opportunities and see what comes, because sometimes it can be really fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, wherever you're from.